Hi, I'm bringing this video to you today to discuss not just rape and murder on the Thai island of Koh Tao, but also a public relations disaster which is unfolding. My name's Ian Yarwood. This is what I look like. And at the beginning of this video, I showed you a screenshot of a new website that seems to have just sprung up. And that will be part of the public relations disaster that I will be getting back to later. In the meantime, I'm just going to discuss a number of little issues that are not necessarily covered in the mainstream media about Koh Tao. This is a picture that was taken by McKenna, who had been on Koh Tao at the time that David Miller and Hannah Witheridge were murdered. The fellow on the left is Montrawat Tuichian, who was the manager of the AC bar, and the fellow on the right is a sergeant of police, Sergeant Utai, and McKenna alleges that the two of them said to him that tonight you're going to hang. Now, his interview has been posted all over the internet, so you can refer back to that. But it's important that you see that the two people that he's accusing of making these statements are the manager of the AC bar and also a sergeant of police. This is a story which was prepared on Andrew Drummond's website over a year ago, and this is where some of the pictures come from. That story can easily be referred to on the internet. This is a picture of the good sergeant. This fellow here, his name is Peter Souter. He was a Swiss gentleman, and he died in a snorkeling accident on Koh Tao in the recent past. The mainstream media has often been referring to 6 or 7 suspicious deaths on Koh Tao in recent years, but they don't necessarily refer to all of them. Mr. Souter drowned. He was an accomplished diver and swimmer, but he drowned and his body washed up several days later. We don't really know the circumstances of his death, but it does appear to be a suspicious death. There have been many deaths on Koh Tao. Some are a lot more suspicious than others. But part of what I'm doing here is just pointing out that the mainstream media does not actually necessarily cover all of the events that transpire on Koh Tao. In fact, two of the recent deaths / disappearances were brought to the world's attention by the tiny website called the Samui Times. Now, if the Samui Times had not broken those stories, there's a good chance that we probably wouldn't have ever heard of them, or the people who would have heard of them would have been very small in number. I'll just keep moving along here. This gentleman here, his name was Ben Harrington. He died on Koh Tao in 2012. The coroner's report was fairly inconclusive in relation to his death, and his parents suspect that he was a victim of foul play. But that's another death. This was just a couple of years before the period that the press is currently focusing on. The press is really focusing on the period from 2014 to the present day. And in fact, I've spoken with one long-term Koh Tao resident, and I asked whether things have just been getting worse in the last few years. And the response to me was, well, no, it's actually been like this for the last 20 years, but with the advent of social media and greater communication, it's harder for people to cover things up. That's my Twitter page. Now, this is a screenshot. It features 6 people who were featured in the Channel 4 program from Britain called Murder in Paradise. In the top right-hand corner, we've got Christina Annesley, Luke Miller down the bottom right-hand corner, Dimitri Povzy, the Frenchman, who was found with his hands tied behind his back hanging. That death was dismissed as a suicide. Below him is David Miller, and the last two are Nick Pearson, who died not that long before David Miller, and Hannah Witheridge. And Hannah Witheridge is in the bottom left-hand corner. This is a picture of a lady who was killed on Koh Tao on the 16th of February 2017. She came from Vancouver. I've mentioned her in another video that I've posted on YouTube. Her name was Shelley Bhatt. She was snorkeling with her partner and they got run over by a boat. Now, I've discussed that in another video, and I welcome you to go to that. But it would appear that what had transpired there was that the boat was outside a designated lane for boats, and in contrast there was an expat who maintained that she and her partner were snorkeling inside the boat lane. But most of the reports I've read indicate that she was swimming in a swimming area. But one of the big dramas that we get with Koh Tao is that there is a never-ending attempt to attack people who will tell the truth. So there is a culture of shooting the messenger. And the Thais certainly engage in that, because part of their culture is that faith is very important and truth is not. So they'd rather tell a lie rather than come clean. This is a picture of Hannah Witheridge with her sister Laura. Laura is the older sister on the left. And one of the horrible things that happened to Laura is that when she started to voice her opinion about her sister's death, the Thai authorities threatened to sue her for criminal defamation. Now, this is one of the really terrible things when it comes to Thai culture. And I want to stress that I've got nothing against Thai people. In fact, I've visited Thailand many times. I've visited many countries in Southeast Asia. And I find that the poor amongst the Thai people are some of the nicest people in the world. But the wealthy and powerful can often be amongst the nastiest. So I've got nothing against Thailand, I've got nothing against Thai people, but certainly the very rich or the very powerful or the criminal element within Thailand can be particularly nasty. The problem for Laura, of course, was that not only was she grieving for the loss of her younger sister, she was also threatened with criminal defamation by the Thai authorities. This is a picture of Nicole Gissing on the left and Luke Miller on the right. When I turn to the website that I showed you at the beginning of this video, it's got a mention that the British coroner said that there was nothing suspicious about Luke's death. But in fact, the reality was that the British coroner did not get all the facts. The British coroner really had to rely on a quite inadequate report from the Thai police. Nicole Gissing had put posts up on her Facebook page some time ago, shortly after his death, saying that she'd wished that she had known about the other deaths on Koh Tao, and she feels that Luke would have still been with them. Now, an interesting thing about Luke Miller is he shares the same surname as David Miller, and a lot of people have noticed this coincidence. What is not widely publicised in the mainstream media is that it's only been in recent years that the Thais have had surnames. It's only been since 1913 an act was passed and making it mandatory for people to have surnames. And so amongst Thais, there are many surnames in Thailand, but amongst the Thais, if people share the same surname, they tend to either be brothers or cousins or very closely related. So you can imagine, and I'm only speculating, I don't know what happened to Luke, but you can imagine that if Luke was in the AC bar, which is where he was drinking up until 1 a.m. the morning he died, if he was in the famous or infamous AC bar, and he mentioned to people that his name was Luke Miller, the Thais, who won't be all that aware of English culture or Western culture, it's easy for them to make the assumption that he's related to David Miller, and so they'll think, well, we'll get him before he gets us. That's just a bit of speculation, but it's something which is not widely known. This is a very famous picture from, or a very famous cartoon now from Steph, who's an absolutely fantastic cartoonist. It says, Koh Tao police to reopen death case of Belgian tourist. That refers to the case of Miss Delamagna, Elise, who was the lady who was found apparently partially eaten by lizards, or at least one monitor lizard. Here's another very well-known cartoon that cropped up in the last week and a half. This is from another cartoonist. In fact, the cartoons I'm about to show you, they had appeared in The Nation and in the Bangkok Post. This is another one from Steph, a really good cartoonist. So a lot of the conduct of the people on Koh Tao has attracted attention, not just from cartoonists, but it's attracted attention from the mainstream media, and it's also attracted some excellent editorials in the Bangkok Post in the last week and a half. And I would encourage you to go and Google those. I might put a few links at the bottom of this video to items of interest, but Mr. Google is also very helpful in finding out information. This is a meme that I created a little while ago, and I've borrowed a phrase from Joseph Stalin, and I've said that the death of one tourist is a tragedy, the death of 10 tourists is a statistic. And here are the names of 10 tourists who've died in recent times. Ben Harrington in the top left-hand corner is someone who died in 2012, so that's not in the last 3 years. But I've gone to the effort of naming 10 people to fit in with that meme. And of course there are other people such as Shelley Bhatt, who perished, but hers was clearly an accident, and that would appear to be manslaughter rather than murder or anything more sinister. There's a picture of Hannah and Laura Witheridge with their mother Sue. Here's a famous cartoon now from Steph. This was also published in one of the major papers in Thailand, one of the major English-speaking papers, and we have an angry Koh Tao saying, "Stop calling me Death Island." The reason that this particular cartoon was inspired is that on the 4th of July, that's right, American Independence Day, on the 4th of July, there was a meeting on Koh Tao with something like 300 business operators, and they were calling for the Samui Times to be sued, not just for their reporting, but also for the use of the term Death Island, which in fact was a tag that had been used previously in other media outlets, on social media, and also just in general conversation. It'd been in forums. So all she did was refer to the fact that